Psalm 33:9 is an interesting verse to me because the psalmist says about creation, it says that God spoke it and it came to be. He commanded it and it stood firm. I love that verse. He spoke it and it came to be. He commanded it and it stood firm. You see, molecules and atoms jump at the voice of God. We saw that in Genesis 1 and 2. In Genesis 1:2, we saw the creation of the world, of the universe, created the heavens and the earth. He spoke it into creation. And what's interesting is when he spoke it into creation, verse 2, it says that it was empty and it was without form. And I told you last week that Hebrew phrase, it's rhythmic, tohu wabohu. Tohu meaning without form or shape. Wabohu meaning without anything in it. It wasn't full of anything. It was just this almost like a potter with a lump of clay in front. And we now learn over the next 6 days of creation, God forms that lump of clay into the known universe, and then he fills it and he populates it and he causes life to spring up from it. And basically what he does is in verse 2, he put it all out there. But it was in chaos, as some would say. And I don't mean chaos in the sense of moral chaos. I don't mean chaos in the sense of, in terms of quality by any means. I mean, it was chaotic. It was without shape or form to it. And then what he did there was he took that chaos, if you will, and he, over the next 6 days, is again going to form it, shape it, and to fill it. And he's going to create what the Greeks call the cosmos. So what God does is he takes the chaos and he turns it into the cosmos. Cosmos, as many of you know, is where we get our English word cosmetics from, which is simply, it's the way of taking what is chaotic and bringing order to it. And that's the whole ministry of cosmetics. And it's based on that fact of bringing order, design to something. And today I want you, if I could, to tattoo something on your soul and mind and heart. And it's simply this. You'll see it on the screen, that you're going to hopefully see over the 6 days of creation that design requires a designer. I want you to see it. I want you to touch it. I want you to taste it for yourself. That design always requires a designer. And I will tell you right out of the gate that as we move through the 6 days of creation, and if I was to give this a title, this would be part 1 of the title, but the title would be 6 Days That Changed the World. 6 days that changed the world. As we move through that, it's both chronological, but it is also methodological. That God moves in order. God isn't a God of order, not of chaos. And what's interesting is he gives us just the facts in the sense of he tells the story of how he did it. And it is not mythological. There are many civilizations, Babylonian, Mesopotamian, all the Onians out there, have all their different versions of how creation happened. But you read them and you would think you're reading a good medieval mythological story because the gods are fighting each other and the god of the grass is fighting the god of the sea and all this stuff. And it gets crazy. What you're going to find here is a very succinct, straightforward description of how things came to be. And he tells it in a very, very direct way. What's interesting to remind ourselves of is that when Moses delivered this, the Pentateuch, and he delivered the creation account, the readers, the Hebrews, they believed they were reading the story of God's creation account. It wasn't mythological to them at all. It was, thank you, Moses. Thank you for delivering that. We now have the recorded story and understanding from God himself of how things all began. And so this morning, I want you to see that as God takes what this lump of clay, as he spoke that lump into existence in verse 2, and now he's going to form it. Everybody say form. Let's have more participation in that. Let's say form. Yeah, so he's going to form it, okay? He's going to give it shape. He's going to give it dimension. And then he's going to fill it with stuff and living creatures and people and plants and animals. He's going to fill it. Everybody say fill. So you got a form and a fill going on here. And when he forms something and he fills it, he takes it tohu wabohu and he turns it from chaos into the cosmos. And I want you to see the layout of Genesis 1, because it's very clear and very succinct. Look up at the screen with me. You'll see the 6 days of creation. And in these 6 days, you have the first 3 days, God is forming the creation. He forms the light and darkness, the sky and waters, and the land and plants. Day 1, day 2, day 3. Then this corresponds over into day 4, day 5, day 6, where he creates the luminaries, the bird and the fish, and the animals and the man. What's interesting is you see day 1, 2, and 3, they directly correlate to day 4, 5, and 6. When he makes the light and darkness, day 4 he makes the luminaries. When he creates the sky and the waters, then he creates the birds and the fish. When he creates the land and the plants, he creates the animals and man. And so this is not an accidental throw together kind of wing it from the hip of God. This is a methodological creation account of how God started everything. And if it's okay with you, we'll start with day 1. Day 1 is the creation of light and darkness. Turn with me, if you would, in Genesis chapter 1, and just let your eyes find verse 3 with me. And notice how Moses puts it. It says this, verse 3, light and darkness is going to happen. He says this, and God said, I love that, God says. It doesn't say, and then God put his work boots on and went down to Home Depot. No, God just spoke it into existence. God said, let there be light, and there was light. And God saw that light was good, and God separated the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night, and there was evening, and there was morning, and that was the first, what's that word? The first day. What you see here is God created light. Well, how did he create darkness? He removed the light. You see, darkness is frankly just the absence of light. So what does he do? He creates light, and then he separates it. He separates it, so now there is darkness, and there is a night here in the darkness, and there is a day in the light. Our God specializes in light. Did you know that? In fact, Grandpa John told us that our God is, not is like, God is light, he said. The very nature and attribute of God himself is God is light. His moral perfection, his holiness, it is pure, undefiled light. In fact, Paul told Timothy, tell that church in Ephesus, tell them that our God dwells in unapproachable light. God, he specializes in this thing called light. And the first thing he creates, in essence, comes out of his nature itself, and he creates this thing called light. He separates it and has light and darkness. He creates a rhythm, watch this, a rhythm of night and day, a rhythm of morning and evening. He creates a rhythm of a 24-hour day. Now, some of you are Bible students, and you're thinking, well, wait a minute. Day 4 is where the luminaries come from, the things that light everything up, but he creates light here. I'm glad you saw that. You see, what happened here is he creates light, and where does this light come from? It's not coming from the luminaries, because those aren't created until day 4. My best guess is most likely this. Someday when we spend eternity with God in heaven, we get new bodies. Amen. 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 We get new bodies, new heaven, new earth. In Revelation, John tells us that there will be no sun. There'll be no need for a sun. Why? Because in essence, Christ, the Godhead, will light all of eternity. So there's a coming day where there will be no luminaries and there will still be light. So it's not unheard of to think at the first creation that God would create light without the luminaries, but he'll add to it. So this is some sort of disembodied, diffused light, just like the new heaven and the new earth will be. Now, day 2, notice this, he goes on creating. Day 2, verse 6 through 8, he says, and God said, again, God speaks it into creation. It's ex nihilo, out of nothing. He just creates it there. And God said, let there be an expanse in the midst of the waters, and let it separate the waters from the waters. It's like Scooby-Doo. Huh? What does that mean? Let this thing called an expanse separate the waters from the waters. Verse 7, and God made the expanse and separated the waters that were under the expanse from the waters that were above the expanse. Okay, Moses, I'm getting more confused. And it was so. Verse 8, and God called the expanse heaven, and there was evening and there was morning the second day. So we have now the day 2, the next 24-hour cycle. We have day 2, and what God does is he creates this thing called an expanse. An expanse is basically, in the Hebrew, it has the idea of a horizontal boundary, not vertical, horizontal boundary that comes above the entire earth. And it separates the water. Remember, verse 2, God moved on the surface of the water, so water was there as part of that cosmic goo that everything came out of there, is understanding there was water. But now what he does is he separates water, he puts it in the lower region here on planet Earth, and then it says that there was a layer of water above the expanse. And you think, well, what's that? Well, number one, let's start with the expanse. What did he do there? He created a thing called, and I'm very thankful for it, I hope you are too, he created this horizontal boundary of ours is called our atmosphere. You want to go to space, you've got to cross that boundary to get out of our atmosphere. And so this expanse that goes around the earth is this atmosphere, and he says there's water below it. We got that, so we swim in it, we boat in it, we fish in it, whatever you do in it, and that's there. But we also have this, now he says, a layer of water above or in the expanse up there. You say, well, what is that? Great question. Bible over here, Pastor Todd over here. Over here, this is a meaning I'm just going to guess at this one, and I think I can prove this to you over a couple of weeks. I think the expanse, the atmosphere that's there, and then you got this layer of water. I'm going to call it a canopy of water. And above that, I believe that God put that there for a very distinct reason. I believe that canopy of water came crashing down, and I think I can prove it to you when we get to the flood, that God brought down the waters from heaven, and he destroyed, in essence, that canopy, and it came crashing down. But in his perfect creation, this canopy of water served as, let me say it this way, as another filter of all the things that are needed in the universe, but aren't necessarily good for us to be exposed to. Case in point, the sun. We love the sun. We sit in the sun. We lounge in the sun. But we know the sun can be a big problem to us, can it not? In fact, I grew up in a day that we really weren't in tune with the damage that sun could give. And so we went to Zuma Beach and we got as red as we could get. And the redder you got, the more cool you looked. My family is so weird. We used to be so cheap, we didn't want to buy oil to put on us, so we would melt butter. Yeah, it's gross unless you're making toast at the beach. It was awesome. And we thought that was so cool. You get, oh, you're redder than me. We now know that's not a good idea, is it? The sun, wonderful, love it, but not too much of it. And what happened is I think God put this canopy. And one of the reasons, and I'll give you multiple ones, but one of the reasons is everything before the flood, you look at humanity, and they all lived like a long time. I don't mean like a long time. I mean like a long time. I mean like they lived so long that AARP kicked them out. They said, we don't have any room for you. You're just too old for us. In fact, the oldest person in the Bible, this is Bible trivia, his name is Methuselah. He lived, he lived to 969 years of age. Can you imagine? This body, I'm not thinking it's going to go to 90. Can you imagine at 969 years of age? And here's the best part. Methuselah had his first kid at 187. I don't think you get it. 187. He has his first kid. Well, why did everybody live so long before the flood? Well, I think one of the reasons is found right here in verses 6 through 8. God had this canopy over the expanse that provided a shield that the world has never seen since it came crashing down at the flood. And I think I can prove that to you when we get to the flood later. And so what you have is the sky and the waters created. Now we move to day 3. Day 3. You still with me? the best part's coming, so don't tune out. If you tune out, I'm coming down there and spanking you. The best part's coming. So day 3, we get the land and the plants. Land and the plants, verses 9 through 13. And God, what did he do? Said. God said something, and let the waters under the heavens be gathered together. So this is the water that's under that expanse. He says, let those waters be gathered together into one place, and let the dry land appear. Don't you love that? Not dig it out, not drying out. He says, just let the dry land appear. And notice where the dry land comes from. It comes from the waters. Do you understand the supernatural miracle of just that statement alone? He grabs this land from this cosmic soup, if you will, brings it up and puts it, and it immediately is a dry land, is a dry continent, is a dry piece of the earth. God is constantly doing the greatest miracle that man has ever heard of, that man had never saw it happen, but we've ever heard of, and that was the creation of the universe. And he constantly is blowing our minds with his power. He's omnipotent. He's omniscient. He knows all things. He doesn't try things. He executes things. He's never informed, and he's never brought up to speed. He just says, let there be dry land. And there is. And notice it goes on. Verse 10, and God called the dry land earth, and the waters that were gathered together he called seas. And God saw that it was what? Good. Let me tell you something. Remember, as I shared with you last week, there's 7 benedictions of good that God gives to creation. And what's interesting, that word good, I can talk. Good is the Hebrew word tov. And here's what tov, why that is important. God is not stepping back and going, man, this is a good day. It's a good day, don't you think? At all the angelic beings, we had a pretty good day here. No, that's not what it means. The tov in the Hebrew has this idea, it's a good gift. It's a good design. It's a good thing to offer out. Remember, James, every good and perfect gift comes down from who? The Father and above. It's a gift. Every time 7 benedictions of good, of tov, God's saying, I'm giving you this. This is my good gift to you. And here we are on day 3, land and plants. This is a gift to us. God saw it was good. Now, verse 11, and God said, let the earth sprout vegetation, plants yielding seed, and fruit trees bearing fruit, in which their seed, each according to its kind on the earth. And it was so. The earth brought forth vegetation, plants yielding seed according to their own kinds, and trees bearing fruit, in which their seed, each according to its kind. And God saw that it was good. And there was evening, and there was morning, and it was the third what? It was the third what? Day. We got another day going. We got another morning, evening, 24 hours go by, and he's created land, and he's created plants here. This is arguably, in my understanding is, I think this is probably one of the most dramatic days of all creation. Now, we're selfish little individuals. We want to go, no, day 6 is the most important because that's when he created us. I believe that day 3, the earth went through its most dramatic change in all of the 6 days. He took what was there and he created land. He created dry land. He created, notice this, deserts and mountains. They came forth. He brought them out. He called them up. And he created it, remember, he created it with beauty. Again, that word tov, good gift, beautiful gift. And beauty comes with age, we talked about last week. And he created all of these things. He didn't use like a 6-inch pot plants, 1-gallon plants. I'm getting to the age, I don't have enough time for a 1-gallon plant. I need 25-gallon plants to enjoy them because I don't have enough time because they're not going to grow that fast. I think when God created things, he created them with like 50-gallon buckets. He created it with beauty. It was there. It was like a green thumb on steroids, and it was like right there. All of this earth from the morning of day 1 to the evening. If you and I were there, we'd go, "Wow, this place has changed. Wow, this is crazy amazing." And so what he does is he creates this dry land. I believe he created some continents at this time. I don't think all the continents. I think I can show you when we come to the flood, we got some tectonic plates moving and we got some continents drifting away from each other. But right here, I think there's some continents. Why do I see that? Notice what he says. He created a thing called seas. You can only have a sea when you're surrounded by land. You can only have sea when you're next to a particular continent. This was a sea. So he created all things that we would look at and go, that resembles almost like a map of the world. He created, this is so cool, he created all of the plants, all the vegetables, here we go, trees, vegetation, and plants. Boom. And then notice what he does. It says here multiple times, he created them according to their kind. Did you catch that? We'll talk about what kind is later when we get to man. But he says, I want you to understand something. I created according to their kind, but here's what I did, is I gave them reproducing capabilities called seeds. So you plant a seed, you get a tree, you get a bush, you get a plant. It now has the ability to reproduce itself. And that, notice what the passage says. It reproduces itself according to its kind. God created all of the kinds simultaneously. I do not believe in theistic evolution. I believe God spoke the kinds into existence. Is there adaptation? Sure. But I believe he created all of the kinds and gave them self-reproducing ability. Now, one other note I want you to see, and I don't want you to miss this, is notice nowhere in this passage, and you're going to see the distinction next week, does he ever refer to the plants, the vegetation, or the trees. He never refers to them as living creatures. And we have become a culture where we've ended up, Romans 1:25, we've ended up worshiping the creation over the Creator. And there's no distinction between a tree and a human. They're all living creatures. No, they're not. God doesn't call them living creatures. He gives life and reproducing capability to it, but it's not a living creature. I am, believe it or not, I know you don't believe it, I am smarter than an oak tree. Loved ones, we worship. Let me say it this way. The greatest threat to humanity is not climate change. The greatest threat to humanity is creation worship. Romans 1:25, they exchanged a truth for a lie, and they end up worshiping the creation. I'm talking about being good stewards. I want to be good stewards, but understand this. This is God's tov to us, a good gift to us, and he calls us, you'll see, to manage it and steward it well. Number 4, we come to the fourth day, final day for today, the fourth day, and now he's going to create these luminaries. These aren't people, special people. These are two lights, and you're going to see that right in the passage. Notice verse 14, and God said, are you picking up a theme here? And God said, when God speaks, like we said last week, has tremendous authority. And God said, let there be lights in the expanse of the heavens to separate the day from the night. And let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and for years. Stop there for a moment. Why the emphasis there? He created the stars, the heavens, the constellations that we see. He created them for a reason. The reason he created them was not for psychics. It's a true statement. He didn't create the stars and the heavens so that somebody could take your $5, you give them their palm, and he tells you you're going to die tomorrow. That's mysticism, that's pagan religion. That is not part of God's design. He explicitly tells us why did he create these luminaries. It wasn't to tell us the future. It wasn't to give us the secret decoder ring from the cereal box and then hold it up to the light and you'll figure out that God's saying, no, he created it for a reason. What's the reason? He created these to be signs. What for? What for, Moses? He tells us, for seasons and for days and for years. He gave these things to humanity so that you and I could mark time. We would have no ability to mark time if it wasn't for this creation of God. That he gave us the ability of a season. There's a winter, there's a spring, there's a summer, there's a fall, and then there's Santa Clarita, there's a summer. But understand, why did he give this? So that you and I could mark time. Look at verse 15. Watch this, and let them be lights in the expanse, that atmosphere that he created. Let them be lights in the expanse of the heavens to give light upon the earth. And it was so. And God made the two great lights, the greater light to rule the day and the lesser light to rule the night, and the stars. Almost like an after statement. Oh yeah, and the stars. Verse 17, and God set them in the expanse of the heavens to give light on earth, to rule over the day and over the night, and to separate the light from the darkness. And God saw that it was, what's the word? Good. And there was evening and there was morning, and it was the fourth, what's the word? Day. So what you have here is he creates two great lights, two massive lights. And you know, we all know what those are. Because these lights were to light, notice what he says, to light the earth. He gave us the sun and the moon. Now some of you are going, oh, there we go again. There we go again. Bible gets it wrong. The moon doesn't generate squat. Okay, it doesn't generate light. I understand that. But he gave us two great lights. One generates light, one reflects light. He's writing from a man's perspective. We understand, we look up and we see, man, that's a bright light. We look at the moon, that's a bright moon. One generates it, one reflects it. It's the same thing. It's the same thing with the whole earth rotating around the sun. You know, we wake up in the morning, we go, that's a beautiful sunrise. Hey, Einstein, the sun didn't rise. The sun never rises. It's fixed. That was a rotation of the earth. But none of us in this room wake up in the morning and go, wow, that's a beautiful rotation of the earth. Right? You're an idiot if you say that. Why? Because it's just, the way we're looking at it is, that's a beautiful sunrise. That moon, beautiful light. One generates it, one reflects it. Two great lights. Gives it to us for seasons, for days and for years and for hours, so that we can mark time. And then notice what he says. I love it. It just feels like an afterthought to me. He says there at the end of verse 16, oh yeah, and the stars. You know, like there's 100 to 200 billion stars in our galaxy? That's a lot of stars. That's a lot. You know, we don't know exactly how many because they keep losing count. 1, 2, what'd you say? Oh, start over. 1, 2. I mean, it's hard to count these suckers because there's so many of them. You see, I think to me, this is where Psalm 8 rises in my heart. The psalmist in Psalm 8, he's the one who says, when I look at your heavens and I look at the handiwork of your fingers, and I see the moon and the stars, here's what the psalmist says. He finally comes to a question. In essence, he says, God, I can't figure out why you even think about me. I think we've lost the wonder of creation. Because once we can explain something, somehow it gets reduced to just textbook knowledge. Some of you in this room are, in a puddle of trouble. And I tell you what I do many times when I'm in a puddle of trouble. Many times I need to get out in creation. And I need to get on top of a hill, or I need to get out of the city where you can actually see stars, and I need to change my perspective. I need Psalm 8 in me. Because when I start to see God's creation undaunted, undefiled, God gets really big really fast in creation. And sometimes some of our troubles are the fact that we have a small version of God and we have big problems. And when you have a big God, you understand you have small problems. Oh Lord, what are what are you even mindful? Why would you even care about this situation I'm in? You're huge. You're huge. And I think that's part of creation, according to Romans 1, is for us to understand the eternal power of our God. You see, things like that you don't hear on Oprah, but we need to preach it to ourselves. We need to preach the hugeness of our God, the greatness of our God, the awesomeness of our God, the giganticness of our God. We need much hyperbole when we think about God deeply. The word big should become inadequate when we really look at his creation. And I want to do that with you because when our God created this world, this universe, and he put the earth on the map, let me tell you what he did. According to the scientists, he put it in what's called the Goldilocks zone of the Milky Way system. And you say, what is that? It's the perfect place that is not too hot, not too cold, not too hard, not too soft. It is the perfect location. Outside of this location, you live in any other zip code than this zip code, you are in a world of hurts. Well, that's not true. You're dead. You're dead. I mean, you're just absolutely dead. The only place for life to exist is on the planet that God called Earth and placed it in the Goldilocks zone of the Milky Way. Let me explain why I mean this. Our Earth is tilted at 23 degrees. The reason it's tilted at 23 degrees, it keeps the water in perfect balance, because if it was 1 degree either other way, the water would rush either to North Pole, South Pole, creating glaciers that would not sustain life on this planet. Our Earth, because of its atmosphere and because of its molten core, has a gravity system that keeps you and I on the planet. You say, is that important? That's very important. And the gravity system is so precise, so finely tuned, that it allows us to walk upright and not be crushed to the ground. But it does not allow our feet to be lifted off the planet, because we know the law of gravity. What goes up must come what? And you can argue with that, and you can jump off this building, and you can argue against gravity all the way down. But God has fixed that law, and he has fixed that law for a reason, because it is a grace gift to us. It's a grace gift to us. Yeah, this is like a tangent thing, and Stacy said, don't, she always tells me don't go off on a tangent. But she left after second service. This is a true story. I got my physical this year. I have been 5'10" since I was 18 years of age. 5'10", 5'10", 5'10", I have 5'10", on the money. They put the height bar deal. I'm 5'9". No, friends, that's not funny. That's not funny. I want to be 6'2". I'm going the wrong direction. I'm like, are you shocked by this, doctor? No, that's normal for a man of your age. I said, but wait a minute. Why is it happening? She says, you know why it's happening? It's because of gravity. It's gravity pushing you down. I'm like, well, am I going to be like 3'2" when I die? Get one of the little baby, little tiny, whatever. So, gravity. Gravity is an incredible gift to us. It is hear me on this. It is finely tuned. It's not random accident. It's finely tuned. We have a stable rotation. In fact, our Earth rotates like a Swiss watch. It rotates with the right regularity, and it rotates with the right frequency to create a 24-hour day, a day and a night, so that it's not all night and not all day. The rotation of our Earth also prevents extreme temperatures and encourages life, because you got day and you got night. You got photosynthesis for the daytime, and you have night for the habitation of certain parts of God's creation. Our atmosphere is awesome. This atmosphere of ours is 100 miles thick, and basically imagine just like a Mr. Coffee filter. It filters everything that comes through it. It holds in the oxygen that you and I need to breathe. Now, the Earth's atmosphere has an ozone layer by it, and the reason that ozone layer exists is because plants give off that oxygen to that ozone layer. Yeah, but this atmosphere, this expanse of ours is transparent enough Not too filtered, because it lets the sunlight through so there can be photosynthesis, so that there can be life given to our cells. We need the sun. Our energy, our cell life, we need that sun. We need that natural vitamin D. And God has made it just perfect. He's mixed nitrogen, carbon dioxide, oxygen, and all these other compounds, and He's created this benign but beneficial atmosphere to us. Our God is not only just a God of creation, He's a God of creativity. He's a God of design. It's not like He just kind of just winged it and threw it all together and I'll fix it as we go. No, He created it perfectly. Our geological aspect of our earth is amazing. We're on an earth which is a rocky planet, which gives a diversity of plants and animals and human life to enjoy different seasons and different experiences. Our earth, I don't know if you know this, has a molten core to it. Did you know that? It's not just hard all the way down. There's a molten core to it. What do I mean by that? Let me give you a word picture. If you've ever been to a nice restaurant and the dessert they serve is molten chocolate cake, we're going to eat that in heaven forever. Okay, molten chocolate cake, and you know they're extra good when they ask you up front, would you like a molten chocolate cake for dessert, because we need to start baking it now. Whenever you get asked that, say yes, because it's always the best molten chocolate cake. That's the same thing with the earth, hard out shell on the outside, but this molten core of internal gases and core elements. These internal gases and elements, they contain enough radioactive elements to keep the core of the planet churning, which by churning, and it gives energy and motion and causes the earth, watch this, magnetic sphere to all of a sudden shield the planet for protection. And it's also strong and stable enough to resist those cosmic rays and cosmic solar flares. It protects us, this combination atmosphere plus molten core, radioactive magnetic field protects us from those bursts of radiation from the sun. And you say, how powerful could those be? They could be 600 million megaton hydrogen bombs is how big they can be. Our God is not just a creator, He is creative. We live on a planet that is built and designed with tectonic plates to it, meaning they move. I know we live in California, and we don't always like it when they move, but it's a wonderful thing that we have this, because the movement of the surface of the earth and the tectonic plates, what it does, it drags down rocks into that molten kind of, remember that hot fudge? Molten core. It melts those rocks that have carbon dioxide built up in them, and volcanoes then erupt and blow it into the atmosphere, creating a cycle of life to our creation, a cycle of ability for humans to live and to thrive and come to a saving knowledge of Jesus Christ. That's why those volcanoes are there. That's why there's a molten core. We live in the Milky Way galaxy. Understand, that's a great zip code to live in. It's better than Bridgeport. It's awesome. I mean, the Milky Way galaxy is awesome. Why? Because it's in the middle of nowhere. And you want to live in the middle of nowhere when you're in their space, because you got all kinds of things flying through the air. You got planets, you got asteroids, you got meteors. Now we have Teslas flying through space too. So we got all kinds of things. And let me just say this. Let me say this to you. We are far from the major spiral arms, the Earth is, of the Milky Way. That means we're in less danger of running into something greater with a greater gravitational pull. Our solar system is stabilized when it comes to planetary orbits. The Earth, are you still with me? Watch this. The Earth is located on the edge of a spiral arm called the Orion Arm. That means it's 2/3 of the way from the center of our galaxy. That is the least crowded place for a planet to be. Accident? Randomness? And then God gave us one of the greatest cosmic gifts of the Milky Way system, and that's Jupiter. When's the last time during prayer, you thank God for Jupiter. I suggest you do it at brunch today. Jupiter is the cosmic vacuum of the universe. Jupiter sits out there on the farthest distance, a gas planet with a strong gravitational pull that sucks in all the meteors, all the asteroids, or any objects that are going towards Earth. It saves our bacon. In fact, in 1994, there was a meteorite 3 miles in diameter, traveling 134,000 miles per hour, headed towards Earth. And what did God say? Don't worry about it. Jupiter will take care of it. What did Jupiter do? Sucked it in, bashed it into 9 pieces, and absorbed it into its atmosphere. Accident? Then there's the sun. The sun. Friends, the sun, this massive star, let me just tell you, this massive star called the sun, it's a very small sun. I mean, it's a very small star. And God has, you know where God has placed the sun in accordance to the earth? He's placed it 92 million miles away. You say, is that good? That's a good thing. You know why it's a good thing? It's because the center of the sun is 27 million degrees Fahrenheit. The surface of the sun is 10,000 degrees Fahrenheit. It's a massive raging ball of fire. It's a small sun, meaning it has a long shelf life. It is, what's interesting is it has those solar flares that just whip out of it. But don't worry, because we got that magnetic field plus our atmosphere that God has created a buffer. But we sure love the sunlight, don't we? What's interesting is us Christians, we act like life is just expected and normal and average. Like if I was to survey everybody in this room, you'd probably go, yeah, this week, maybe this past week was kind of an average week. I mean, the majority of us probably would say that. It was just average. Do you understand something? When it comes to the creation account in Genesis, there is no such thing as an average week. Do you understand that we're on top of this planet that God spoke into existence? Now watch this. Remember, the sun's the center of everything. And remember the earth. Right now we're on an axis at 23 degrees tilt. And do you realize right now, right this very second, as I speak, we are spinning 1,000 miles an hour right now on our axis? Do you feel it? You don't feel it because of gravitation. No pull that keeps you to earth that makes it feel like it's all normal. But right now, you're spinning 1,000 miles an hour. Do you know what else you're doing right now? Not only are you spinning 1,000 miles an hour on the axis of 23 degrees, but you're also whipping around this massive ball of fire at 65,000 miles per hour. I don't think you get it. We are spinning 1,000 miles an hour. And at 1,000 miles an hour, we are whipping around a ball of fire at 65,000 miles per hour. Oh my goodness. You don't get it. We are spinning. Think about it right this second. Not like when you go to lunch. Right now, we're spinning 1,000 miles an hour and we're whipping around this ball of fire at 65,000 miles per hour. And we say to each other, how was your day? Nothing. Nothing. It was average. It was Monday. I close with this question, and that is our God awesome or what? Amen. Father, we apologize for our ignorance at times. And in some ways, we're probably grateful that you don't reveal everything to us. But Lord, what you have revealed in creation is amazing. And Father, through the incredible gift of science, not only can we see a creator, we can see how he created it. And Father, help us to supersize you in our hearts and minds this week. Lord, for some of us, maybe we just need to get outside, drive out to the beach, get on the sand, go up to a mountain somewhere and look at the stars. Just to be reminded, we have a big God, and we have small problems. So, Father, there's no such thing as an average life, an average day on this crazy planet of yours. We admit it's not always easy, but life is an amazing gift. It really is Tov, a beautiful gift to each of us. And for that, we thank you this morning. Pray this in Christ's name. Amen.